People really don't want to look closer into his childhood and to what his mama had going on in that house. God knows what he saw and what happened to him in his own mama house. All of those strangers, them up involved, looking around, seeing what was going on. And let's just be clear, it sounds like her house was a house of, profession.
Looks like the internet still isn't letting up on Janice Combs at all. The pressure is heavy, the tone is darker, and the chatter around her has taken a sharp left turn fast. For most of last year, she was standing 10 toes down defending Diddy, even calling his legal drama a public lynching. But now, folks online are flipping the script and digging into her past instead. The rumor mill is spinning nonstop, with people claiming there are new receipts and stories floating around that paint a much messier picture than anyone expected. And yeah, it sounds wild. People are now asking the uncomfortable question out loud. Should Janice be held accountable for the man her son became? If these rumors about early, inappropriate party environments are true, some are saying it could have shaped what he saw as normal before he was even old enough to understand consequences. Others are pushing back hard, saying it's unfair to pin a grown man's choices on his mother, especially one who struggled, sacrificed, and worked to give him a private education and a real shot at success as a single parent. This is where Jaguar Wright comes back into the picture. She's been one of the loudest voices turning the heat up, openly claiming that Janice played a direct role in how Diddy turned out.
And my father, he was when I was 3 years old. I don't have a lot of memories of my father. They say, you can't miss something you never had. So that's only a little ways right, There's definitely been times as I've gotten older that I've missed my father, and his presence not being there, having somebody not to ask manly advice, and just things that you would ask your father. Also things that you would celebrate with him.
And if you really listen to what she's saying, some people feel like her argument feels a little too on point, especially with the stories already out there about the environment Diddy grew up in. Folks keep pointing out that we already know his upbringing wasn't exactly clean-cut. Diddy himself has spoken on his father before, confirming that he was involved in the streets and passed away when Diddy was still young. He's openly admitted knowing that kind of life usually only ends one of two ways. He's also said he believes he inherited his father's hustler mentality through DNA, but critics are saying it didn't stop there. According to the streets, that mindset mixed with his environment created something way bigger and way more dangerous than just ambition. So now the internet's watching closely, side-eyeing every old interview, every quote, and every receipt, trying to figure out where influence ends and personal responsibility begins. This conversation is getting louder, messier, and way more uncomfortable by the day. And trust, nobody's backing off anytime soon.
My father was a hustler, He was a dealer, he was a hustler. And so I learned early in life that there's only two ways out of that, dead and in jail. And, made me work that even harder. So sometimes you can't just answer why. Things happen, but I definitely think the route that I went on, staying out the streets and, hitting my books and trying to be somebody, I think he played a role in that. I think that even if we don't know our parents, we still have their DNA in us. We have their genes. I have his hustler's mentality, his hustler spirit, his drive, his determination, his swag. He's gonna be on my mind a lot today. You know what I'm saying? My father's name was Melvin Combs, and I'm Melvin's son, Sean Combs.
As he got older, Diddy even admitted himself that he deeply craved his father's presence and was chasing a level of success that would have made a street legend proud. That hunger didn't come out of nowhere, and people online are saying it shaped how hard he pushed himself later in life. But here's where things get sticky, because after his father passed, guess who was right there during those formative years? Yep, his mother was the constant, and critics claim she may have exposed him to things he shouldn't have been around at such a young age, which adds another layer to this already heavy conversation.
Several people have spoken up about the environment Diddy grew up in, including his childhood friend Tim "Dog" Patterson. Tim said he actually lived in Diddy's basement when they were kids and witnessed him being picked on, emotionally overwhelmed, and getting into physical altercations with peers. At the same time, life at home wasn't exactly soft either. According to Tim, discipline in the house was strict, intense, and centered around one rule: losing was not allowed. Diddy was taught early that if someone took something from him, he had to go get it back or face serious consequences at home, which forced him to stand up to bullies even when the pressure got too heavy.
Tim also alleged that Janice Combs hosted wild parties at their Mount Vernon home while Diddy was growing up. And this is something he openly discussed in an interview. He said, "I do not want to condone, and I don't condone any of the things that he's been accused of, but Sean is special to me. You know, we were big brother, little brother type of moves, and there's no way I can sit back and allow this to happen without giving context to his life and to his story and giving some type of understanding that he was not born a monster. Because Sean had no dad. All he had was his mom." And that quote alone has people debating whether this was survival mode or the start of something way deeper.
An excuse, because I believe in those people shouldn't have went through what they went through. But at the same time, judging Puffy, he might have going on when he was young. You know, Mama ran a house. There was all kind of activities in there. He was there when he was young. He might not. Some of those men might not want to teach him how to draw. Like there's something else flying in that landed besides that paper plane, you know.
According to people who were around back then, that house was never quiet, especially on weekends. Folks said there was always something going on. Non-stop movement, non-stop chaos. Diddy was allegedly surrounded by alcohol, smoke, and adults living reckless lifestyles way too early, with people coming in and out who were battling addictions or hustling in the streets. That was described as the normal setting in that home. And critics are saying a kid growing up in that kind of atmosphere was bound to be shaped by it one way or another. And it wasn't just one person saying this either. That childhood friend wasn't alone, because even Suge Knight echoed similar claims from behind bars, basically saying the environment played a huge role in molding Diddy's mindset. Different people from totally different walks of life are all pointing back to the same thing. The influence started early and it ran deep. Whether folks want to hear it or not, that's what's keeping this conversation alive online. What really raised eyebrows is that Diddy's mom allegedly noticed troubling patterns when he was still very young. In an old Rolling Stone piece, several women who attended Howard University with Diddy spoke up, saying they noticed signs of a controlling personality decades ago. Some described moments involving unwanted physical contact and sudden angry outbursts on campus that made them uncomfortable. One woman said she deliberately kept her distance after he touched her back without warning, while another recalled him losing his temper over being called out for cutting in the cafeteria line. It didn't stop there. Another former student claimed he would repeatedly interrupt a young woman's class by tapping on her classroom window, pressuring her to leave with him. One anonymous source even said she witnessed him outside a dorm building yelling aggressively for his girlfriend to come outside, causing a scene. According to that same account, things escalated fast, with witnesses saying he became physically aggressive while people nearby screamed for him to stop. She said, "She was crying, trying to defend herself, and we were yelling at him to get off her."
My mom's gorgeous. Hold on, let me introduce you to my mom, called Mom Dukes.
Hi.
She's getting a drip with me. She's hydrating. What's up, Mom?
Everything's good, baby. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
Now people are connecting the dots, saying these moments weren't random at all. Online chatter says these early behaviors, combined with the environment he grew up in, may have shaped not only who Diddy became, but also the complicated and unsettling dynamic people now point out between him and his mother as an adult. And trust, the internet is not letting that theory slide quietly at all. Let's be real for a second, because a lot of people have said they've always felt uncomfortable watching the dynamic between Diddy and his mother. One moment that keeps getting brought back up is those clips where they're kissing on the lips, and yeah, that rubbed plenty of folks the wrong way. Some people already feel funny about parents doing that when kids are young, but seeing it happen when someone is fully grown had people online looking sideways and calling it straight up strange. Others took it a step further, pointing out a pattern they've noticed where some mothers treat their sons like the partner they never had, and critics say that vibe felt loud here. It didn't help that in the same video, Diddy openly said his mother was single and ready to mingle, then casually mentioned taking her to strip clubs. That alone had the internet spiraling, questioning boundaries, and wondering why certain lines even got crossed in the first place. Then, there's an even darker allegation that popped up in a documentary, claiming Diddy once struck his own mother after repeated moments of disrespect. That rumor alone shocked a lot of people, but it didn't stop there. Gene Deal previously spoke about witnessing Diddy curse at his mom and tell her to shut up, and Gene made it clear he wasn't about to let that slide. According to him, he straight up warned Diddy that if he ever spoke to his mother like that again, there would be serious consequences. Gene recalled the moment clearly, saying, "When he cursed her out, we were getting in the limousine. This was when the office was on 19th Street on 5th Avenue. He said, 'Didn't I tell you to stay out of my business?' He was talking to his mother, and I said, 'Boy, let me tell you something. If I ever hear you curse at your mother again, I'm gonna beat the ish out of you. Don't you ever curse your mother again?'"
I'm single, yeah, for real. Mom Duke know how to have a good time. She ain't sitting in the house playing. They outside moving and shaking, baby. She come with me to strip club. I don't care. For real. It's my dog, you know, I want to live life. We out here moving and grooving. So my mom told me, she just said, keep moving, baby.
That's right.
Keep moving.
Don't stop.
She could touch the floor with her.
Gene also claimed he later heard that Diddy had smacked his mother, a story he says was told to him by Kirk Burroughs. And now people are revisiting all of this, saying these moments weren't random at all, but part of a long-running pattern that's finally being questioned out loud. So here's what people online are really saying, and they're not whispering it either. A lot of folks believe Janice's house parties back in the day were basically the blueprint for how Diddy later moved through life. They're claiming those gatherings set the tone early, and now everything is being re-examined with a magnifying glass. Janice hasn't helped calm things down either, because she's been loud about calling these narratives lies and public lynchings, framing the criticism as a calculated attempt to tear down the entire Combs family legacy. But critics aren't backing off. They keep circling back to one main issue. Those parties allegedly included alcohol and adult-style environments that may have exposed Diddy to grown-up situations far too early. People argue that repeated exposure like that can blur lines and normalize things that shouldn't feel normal at a young age. And that's exactly the angle Jaguar Wright has been pushing nonstop, saying the environment planted seeds long before fame ever showed up. Now, to be fair, some are trying to balance the conversation. Yes, environment matters, and yes, early exposure can shape how someone views boundaries and consent later in life. But at the same time, critics point out that by the time Diddy was hosting his own controversial events, he wasn't some confused kid anymore. He was a fully grown, powerful mogul with money, lawyers, influence, and complete control over his decisions. That's where the debate really heats up.
Kirk Burroughs was like, yo, man, he told me he should have saw this coming with Cassie and the way he treated women when he slapped his mother. And I was like, he did.
Plenty of people grow up in chaotic or unconventional homes and still don't go on to repeat harmful patterns as adults. So while upbringing may explain some things, many are saying it doesn't excuse everything. And that's why this discussion keeps looping back to one uncomfortable truth. Influence and responsibility aren't the same thing, and the internet is still trying to decide where one ends and the other begins. Here's the thing people keep circling back to, and it's getting louder by the day. A lot of folks online are saying Janice's home wasn't just a house, it was more like an open-door environment where grown folks' business spilled into a child's world way too early. They're claiming those gatherings weren't just harmless get-togethers, but situations where adult energy, adult behavior, and adult decisions were happening in plain sight. And when that becomes normal at a young age, people argue it doesn't just disappear from your mindset later on. What really fuels the backlash is how defensive Janice has been since these conversations resurfaced. Instead of staying quiet, she's gone on record calling everything lies, smear campaigns, and public lynchings, framing herself and her son as victims of a bigger plot to destroy the Combs name. To critics, that response feels less like accountability and more like damage control. They're saying when you fight the narrative that hard, it makes people dig even deeper. And that's exactly what's happening now. Jaguar Wright keeps getting mentioned because she's been pushing this same angle for years. She's consistently said that the environment is where it all started. Not fame, not money, not power. According to her, when a child grows up watching excess, control, and chaos being treated like everyday life, it wires them differently. People online say that doesn't mean Janice intended harm, but intention doesn't erase impact. And that's the part many feel is being ignored. At the same time, there's another side that refuses to let the conversation get lazy.
Watching, you got basketball players coming over late at night, you got hustlers coming over, PIMPs coming over, women who look like they were modeling for Jet magazine coming over. Like, it sounds like the nature of the environment is what shaped their perception of what cool.
Plenty of people are saying you can acknowledge a rough or inappropriate upbringing without letting a grown man off the hook. By the time Diddy became a billionaire mogul, he had access to advisors, therapy, lawyers, and endless resources to unlearn whatever didn't serve him. Folks are saying at some point, survival mode turns into personal choice, and that line gets crossed fast. That's where the moral tug-of-war really sits. Yes, early exposure can blur boundaries and shift how someone sees power and consent, but it doesn't force anyone to repeat patterns decades later. Millions of people grow up in unstable, unconventional, or even chaotic homes and still make different choices as adults. So critics argue that while the past might explain the foundation, it doesn't excuse what happens once full control is in your hands. And that's why this debate refuses to die down. The internet isn't just asking who influenced Diddy, they're asking who's responsible and when responsibility officially kicks in. Was Janice part of the blueprint, or is she being used as a convenient target now that the walls feel like they're closing in? Either way, this conversation isn't cooling off anytime soon, and every old clip, quote, and receipt is getting dragged back into the spotlight whether anyone likes it or not. And that's really where this whole mess lands, because the internet isn't confused anymore, it's divided and loud about it. On one side, you've got people saying Janice's house, her choices, and that early exposure played a major role in shaping how Diddy moved later in life. They're saying kids don't just magically forget what they see, and when certain behavior gets normalized early, it can follow you for decades. To them, this isn't about hate, it's about patterns, influence, and how far back the roots really go. But on the flip side, there's a growing group refusing to let accountability get blurred. They're saying you can talk about upbringing all day, but once someone hits adulthood, especially with power, money, and access, the responsibility shifts fully onto them. At some point, excuses turn into choices, and choices turn into consequences. People keep repeating that Diddy wasn't trapped, broke, or unaware later in life. He was running the room, calling the shots, and surrounded by people paid to protect his interests. That's why folks are saying both things can be true at once. Yes, environment matters, and yes, early exposure can twist how someone views control, relationships, and boundaries. But that doesn't erase the fact that decades passed. Chances came and went, and opportunities to course correct were always right there. Growth isn't automatic, but ignoring it isn't accidental either, and that's where the heat really sits. What's also fueling this nonstop discussion is Janice staying vocal instead of laying low. Every statement, every defense, every attempt to reframe the narrative keeps pulling her deeper into the spotlight. Critics say when you loudly deny everything, people stop listening and start investigating harder. Instead of sympathy, it's turning into suspicion. And now every old clip, interview, and rumor is being dragged back up like it never left. And let's be honest, the internet loves patterns more than apologies. Folks aren't just watching Diddy anymore, they're side-eyeing the entire backstory, asking uncomfortable questions about family dynamics, boundaries, and silence. Whether that's fair or not is still up for debate, but one thing's clear, this isn't about one moment or one accusation anymore. It's about how far back the story really goes and who knew what when. So now we're stuck in that gray zone where influence, accountability, and legacy all collide. Was Janice a flawed parent navigating survival, or was she reckless with boundaries that shouldn't have been crossed? Was Diddy shaped by chaos, or did he choose to lean into it once power was in his hands? The internet hasn't decided, and honestly, it might never fully agree. What is certain, though, is that this story isn't done unfolding. More voices keep popping up, more old stories are resurfacing, and the pressure isn't easing up at all. Every day, the conversation gets messier, louder, and harder to ignore and trust. Nobody's letting this fade quietly. So before you dip, make sure you smash that like button if you're riding with us, tap subscribe if you're a real one, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single messy update. Trust me, you're gonna want to be here for the next video.